Hello there, welcome to my second tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to cover concerns. Concerns are just a design pattern. Basically you're including behavior that concerns a particular class into your class. So let's go ahead and take a look at what changes we've made from last time. And this is building off the last tutorial that we started with, which is the e-commerce example. So in case you didn't see that, we've got just basic customer model, order model, product model, transaction model. Now, concerns are included in Rails 3 and Rails 4. It's just you basically just extend active support concern, as I'll show you. But you just have to add it to your load path, the concerns path to your load paths if you're still using Rails 3. Concerns are one of my favorite patterns in Ruby and Rails because you're able to take a set of behaviors out of a class and move it into an abstract module where you're able to basically just include it into any class which may share that same behavior. It makes your code really dry and really reusable. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we can use concerns. So what we are going to do today is we're going to create a statusable concern. So basically a product may have many statuses, right? Just like a blog post could have a status, an active status and a in post and progress status, whatever it may be. A product, we want to have a status. We're going to talk about the stock status, right? So we want to have in stock, we want to have out of stock, all of that, right? On order. So what we want to do is we want to make a concern that's called statusable. We're going to pass in attributes which represent the statuses that a particular product can have. And we're also going to be able to set a default status with this concern. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to, in our models concerns directory here, we're going to go ahead and create that concern. We're going to call it statusable. That's not the right folder, but that's okay. So yeah, it's just a module. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste in some code here. So paste in some code here. Basically what we have here is we need to, forgot one key piece. We need to require active support concern. Right, so we've got this statusable module and we're extending active support concern, and then this will give us this DSL method which is included. So we open that up, we pass it a block of our methods that we're going to define onto the class. So basically from here we should have direct access to the class and we can define class methods on it. So our class method is going to be called status attrs, and then we're going to pass it an unknown amount of arguments. So we've got our status attributes method here. The statuses we're going to define are going to be in stock, out of stock, and on order. So let's go ahead and go back to our product model and go ahead and add those statuses. So we're going to add this method and we are going to pass in our array of statuses. So we're going to do in stock, out of stock, and on order. Oh, I missed an S. So let's go back here and save. So let's just do a puts, and then we're going to puts our args.inspect our array of arguments and just make sure it's working. So if we run console product, once we load this class, it should evaluate that. And yep, there's our statuses. So let's talk about our goal here. So what we want to do is we want to be able to create scopes based on these statuses we passed in. So for instance, we're going to have a product on our product model. We want to be able to do product dot in stock, right? And we want to do product dot out of stock. But we want to define these methods based on the arguments, the statuses that we've passed into our arguments array. And we want to be able to create other methods as well. So the other methods we're going to create, so we also want to be able to check to make sure to see if a product is in a particular status or state. So when we have a product, an instance of a product, let's pretend this is an instance of the product, We want to be able to say product in stock. Actually, we're going to prefix it with a status underscore status name. So we want to be able to do that. And once again, we don't want to have to write any additional code or any more code that we need to. And we want to be able to reuse this behavior and include it in other classes. So we also want to be able to validate the presence of a status or of our model within, I can't talk. We want to be able to evaluate the presence of a particular status on our model so that we're not including random statuses or arbitrary statuses that we don't want to let in there. We want to make sure that the statuses that are being saved are the ones that we defined, and if not, we want to throw an error. And once again, we don't want to have to write validation for that. So that's kind of the basics of what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and write our first method here. So basically what we're going to be doing is iterating over these arguments and then passing them in. I just got a message about my startup disk being full. Hopefully it doesn't run out. So we're going to pass this in and we're going to do args each. We can call it arg, we can call it S, shorthand for status, whatever we want to do. Well, let's call it S. So first method we're going to define is for each of these arguments. So for each of our statuses, let's go ahead and create that Boolean method to check whether it is a particular status, whether the instance is a particular status or not, right? So we're going to use define method, which is the instance. This will define an instance method on our model. And we're going to call that method status underscore that argument name dot to S, because it was a symbol. And then we're going to add a question mark on the end. And I apologize if you see this lag on my screen. I think it's because my startup disk is full, so I'm going to pause for a second. So now that we're within the this defined method, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be calling the status, which will check a instance's status field, right? So this will call, so we have a product status, or we have a product. This is just calling product status. So we're checking to see if status is equal to this string. To S. Yeah, string. This is going to return as a string, so this should do it. Right? So, yeah, we're just checking to make sure that it's equal to it, or whether it's equal to it. And let's go ahead and see if that works. So product dot new status is in stock. Oops. So status is in stock. So let's check product dot in stock. Undefined method. Oh, yep. Status in stock is false. So what did I do wrong? Status 2s. Oh, because status was a symbol there. So yeah, we'll cast them both to string. And we'll see if that worked. True, yay. So now we've got our equality method. Let's check to see if it's another status. Make sure that it's working correctly. Status out of stock, which should return false. False. All right. So let's go ahead and define our scope method. So once again, we want to be able to have a scope defined, which is going to be in stock, out of stock, or the other one, on order. So to do that, we need to define a singleton method. Define method creates an instance method, and define singleton method will create a class method. So we're going to pass in s, make sure it's a string, and we will go where status s.toS. So where status in stock, where status out of stock, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and see if that works. So let's go ahead and create a couple of products to test this out and make sure it works. Right, so product new status, and I don't know why we're passing in a symbol there. Let's pass in a string and keep it simple, huh? In stock, and product.name is Pepsi Max. Product.save. Name is Diet Coke. And Diet Coke is going to be out of stock. Right, so now we should have two products, Pepsi Max and Diet Coke. Yeah. So let's see if that scope worked. Did we already do that? I'm losing my mind. Okay, no, we haven't done that yet. Yes, we had done. I'm struggling. Okay. So we want to be able to do product dot in stock. And bam, there we have our scope, and it's returning only the in-stock items. Product dot out of stock. And we get our out-of-stock item. Great. And actually, while we're at it, we're going to create a not status scope for all of our statuses, right? So we want to be able to do product dot not in stock to get all of the out of stock, or product not on order, and then we can use those scopes and combine them, right? Not that we're going to do that within this tutorial, but let's just go ahead and create that for the sake of argument. So I'm just going to paste that in actually. Define singleton method, not underscore, same deal, where we're just checking status not equal to status, right? So let's talk about the other behavior that we'd like. So well, not behavior, rather more, we're going to define a method for some introspection and be able to check to see all of the statuses that we've defined for a particular product, right? So we're going to do that in a singleton method. And we're just going to call it statuses. And since we're just passing in a list of what we've already defined, we're just going to do args. And it's that easy. So statuses should return a list of all our statuses. And you know, we could use this for metaprogramming purposes, and it's helpful when you're debugging things and all sorts of great fun reasons. Oh, let's check our not scope first too. So not out of stock. And we get only in stock ones. Awesome. Product dot, forgot what I was just doing. Statuses. And we get our statuses. Right, so let's go, first of all, let's go back and change those to strings, because that'll just make things easier. Stock on order. Cool. So let's go ahead and, well, let's make sure our methods are still working actually. Yes. It should be out of stock. Yes. Okay. Great. So what we want to do now is we want to have the ability to set a default status. So to do that, we're going to need to, after the model is initialized, we're going to need to set the status of the particular instance of the model, right? So we also need to pass into our DSL method. We want to be able to do this. Default status is in stock, right? So when you create an item, by default, it's going to be in stock. And actually not when you create an item, when you initialize an item, we want to have that set if a status hasn't already been set. So to do that, first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get the options. We're going to need to separate the arguments from the options that we pass into our DSL method. And that may have sounded complicated if you're newer, but it's actually the easiest thing in the world because of Rails and active support, which gives us this extract options method. So what this does is, with given an array that we pass in, it will extract the options hash from that array. So it'll identify the hash, extract it, and we will use that as our option. So we're just going to go options equals args.extract options, and then that will also remove it from the array itself. So all we'll have is our arguments left over. So it will work beautifully, or at least should. So let's go ahead and see if that works. If we put options.inspect, when we load our application, we should see those options being put once we load the model. Bam, default status in stock. So got that taken care of. So let's go ahead and define our method. So what we need to do is we need to do after initialize, do self. So this is, in case you're not familiar, we can just call the method itself here, or we could have passed in a method name and defined a method. We don't want to do that. We just want to set it on after initialize. So sorry for there was confusion there. Status equals options. We could do default status. We're going to use fetch in this instance, which just fetches a key from the hash of options. So options fetch default status, and if we want to, we could, the reason I use fetch is so we could by default assign something in the instance that default status is not there. So let's just go ahead and do that. And we need to cast that to a string in case we pass in a symbol, whatever, we'll just make sure. And we only want to do that if we have this key, if options has key default status, right? Let's go ahead and try that out and see what happens. So exit, I think we passed in a default status, didn't we? Let's go check. So yeah, default status in stock. So it should be set to in stock after we initialize a product. Let's go see if we can find one. And Diet Coke, we're going to call this, we're going to have Sprite. And this time around, we're not going to pass in a status. And it should initialize a default status, right? Status in stock, great. Product save, we now have Sprite. And let's go ahead and retrieve that. What was that? 3. Find 3. We're going to get our Sprite. And let's change the status of our Sprite to out of stock. So that I can illustrate the problem. Product.find3. You'll notice that our status is in stock again. Why is that? Because we did not, after initialize, it's initialized every time you look up the model. So we want to do this only if the status blank. So now this should work, right? Product dot status equals out of, oh, it already did work because look, it didn't overload our attribute there. So anyways, that, yeah, struggling. Product equals product find 3. So what we want to do now is we want to set up automatic validation. This is going to be the last thing we're going to do for this tutorial. And I think I'm going to do another tutorial where I'm going to cover a couple of other things, such as making the status reusable for a particular, so we can use it on the same model. So we could have like a stock status, and then we could have a visibility status, let's say, or I'm just shooting from the hip, and these are terrible ideas. I'll come up with something better. Anyways, that'll be our next tutorial. I don't know I'm rambling about it right now, but I am. So I'm going to stop. Validate status. We want to validate the status now. So let's go ahead and go back here, and we want to add this validation. Validates status inclusion. We're going to make sure that status is in args, and we're going to map our arguments to string, make sure they're strings. So this should, in theory, unless I've done something wrong, prevent any statuses that we haven't defined as acceptable statuses from being set on our model. Let's go ahead and check that out. Okay, what am I doing? Command line, there you are. So product, whoa. Let's do first, assign it to a variable maybe this time. Product status equals bad status, and product save. I could type rollback transition false because why? Bam, status is not included in the list. So that's exactly what we wanted. Yeah, basically this behavior that we've defined is now reusable in any number of our models. Once again, I'm going to do another tutorial, and I'm going to show you how to do it per column, so you could use this module twice within a particular model. But yeah, so we've wrapped it up all into one class. It's all one thing. So I'd encourage you to look for ways of taking behavior that you've defined on models and refactoring it, moving it into concerns if it is behavior that can be reused and is present throughout your application. Once again, it's a design pattern I really like, but yeah, super awesome pattern, like it. Don't know what I'm rambling about. Go visit my site for more tutorials, bnw.io, and I promise they'll get better with time as I do more. Anyways, hope you at least learned something, and yep, talk to you later.